Hello and welcome to another edition of the SC Fanguard. My name is Mark. I marched Santa Clara from 1997 to 2001.
I'm John, and I marched in the SCV from 1979 through 1981, and we'd like to welcome you all to the next edition of the SC Fanguard.
Welcome, welcome. We've got a lot of guests tonight, and I'm so thrilled. Tonight we are
What a guest group tonight, yeah.
A two-part special for the SC Fanguard. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be an amazing two-part episode. In part one, we are going to be reviewing 1987 Garfield Cadets, one of my all-time favorite shows. Love it, love it, love it.
Great show.
And
Great
in part two, which will be in another video, we're going to review our most requested video, 1987 Santa Clara Vanguard. So make sure you tune in for that one as well. And let's get right around to it. Let's go around the horn here and introduce our special guest for tonight. Let's start with Ty.
Hey, everybody. I'm Ty Hardaway from Claremont, California. I now live in Maryland, and I have for the last 25 years, something like that. I don't know. It's been here a long time. I marched Santa Clara in 86 and 87, but I was a fan of Santa Clara going back to high school, and it was always my dream to march in that corps. And it was a dream come true to serve as center snare in 1987.
Hi, everybody. I'm Martha Garcia. When I marched, I was Martha Leeson. I marched from 1984 to 1987, and I guess technically I didn't march. I was in the pit. I was primarily the timpanist. I did mallets and auxiliary percussion those years. And I was very fortunate enough to grow up right next to Santa Clara. So that was always my number one choice once I got over this very brief Blue Devils phase in high school. Fun fact, I also was raised until I was 11 years old in the town next to Garfield, New Jersey.
Hey, everybody. My name is Bill Thomas. I grew up in Hayward, California. I marched in...
All right, I had to give a shout out to the Hayward folks.
I marched euphonium and baritone in Vanguard from 1983 to 1987.
Wow.
And in the Alumni Corps in 1997 and 2017. And I was on the board of directors from 2013 through 2018. So if nothing else, I know how to pick an age out year.
And now let's go to our two distinguished guests from the Garfield Cadets.
Hi, I'm Stuart Carter. I grew up in Carmel, Indiana. I was a French horn player in the 27th Lancers in 85 and 86. I played mellophone at Garfield in 87 and 88.
And last but certainly not least, Mr. Marc Whitlock. Nice to see you again, sir. This is your second appearance on the Fan-gard.
Second time with us.
I think we have like a T-shirt or something for you somewhere.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marc Whitlock. I was actually raised in Kentucky, and drum corps was my kind of way to get out and see the world. And I started marching in 1980, and my travels led me to a few corps, and I aged out with the 87 Garfield Cadets. I taught on the staff the year after that, and since then I've taught several corps, including an absolute privilege to be with the Santa Clara Vanguard on staff from 2000 to 2003, and currently I'm back with the cadets as well.
Oh, wow. Great.
Awesome. And we are honored to have you. We're honored to have you all. 87, and of course I know we got Vanguard people and we've got cadet people, Garfield people. You guys hated each other, right? I mean, just hate.
What do you mean past tense?
Yeah,
I think the intense emotion from the two corps was the utmost respect.
It was the utmost respect. And for us, to be frank, even though we were on a great winning streak, there was some fear.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
My personal perception was that from probably mid-season on, or at least the last 3 weeks, it was all Santa Clara and Garfield. Both those shows were at that time state of the art, very avant-garde to some degree,
Yeah.
and ahead of their time in some respects. And we were the top 2-tiered corps, but I think it was just also the feeling of the performances. So
there was a core of, no pun intended, the group of people from northern New Jersey going back into the mid to late 70s and on into the 80s that kind of started Garfield on the push. And they got through the three-peat. And most of them had aged out. There were, some vets that were hanging around from 83 through 87. But it was kind of in the second phase of that when people were like, oh, Garfield's really good, I'm going to go march there. But then if you remember in 86, they tried something radical. They scrapped the color guard. They put the girls on horns. They did a huge show that was, kind of a mixed, had kind of a mixed result from that. And they were taking, I don't want to say they would take anyone with a pulse, but they really needed to get members in to fill out that line. And so you have this kind of mixed bag of people hanging around at camps in Garfield from 86 going into 87. Nothing at all like this kind of close-knit family that you talk about particularly in the horn line with the Vanguard.
What was the opener that year?
Well, the entire show was Appalachian Spring, and so very much of the show was taken not completely literal, but to some degree to order of the original, and that mixed around with it. I thought a absolutely brilliant arrangement from Michael Klesch in his younger years of just getting started. It was only his third year of arranging.
Oh,
and Stuart's
wow!
Right, there was a lot of turnover between the years of 86 and 87 cadets. And besides the membership changes, there was also design changes. Zingali and Sylvester had gone to the Star of Indiana in 1986. And then through whatever business was worked out, they came back to Garfield in 1987. And that did bring some members back who had left, who were still eligible, but a lot had aged out as well. And there was some key veterans in the Corps. Our Horn Sergeant, Rick Wygant, was fantastic. Chris Noble, who had been there since 83, who was a baritone player. There was some really strong leadership from the Corps of the early years. Ann Janellis in the color guard, April Gilligan in the color guard. And so we had a strong Corps leadership to bring us in, Michael Jones, of course, in percussion. And we had enough Corps leadership to bring a lot of new people along well and teach them well from modeling examples. But yeah, it was quite a difference between our two corps in that year and in the starts. And it was good to have Zingali back. And the show was real special to him. And he did it as an homage to Don Angelica. And we found that out, I think, when we were practicing the last week up in Minnesota, up in Minneapolis.
Right.
And it took on a whole new meaning for us after that, for sure.
Early on, there were it wasn't drum corps enough. So there were some major rewrites in July where they took a couple of the kind of between, or at the end of one section, get a big hit in there, and then go into the next section and then drum corps it up for the end. So you had to do that because of the venue you were playing. But the goal was, we want people to experience this great ballet to the point of even having the featured dancers.
Yeah.
Right. That's a good point, Stuart. And we had a featured dancer. Stuart, correct me if I'm wrong.
He was
his
amazing.
name was Wesley Johnson.
Wesley Johnson. Yeah, he was in Alvin Ailey's varsity dance company or something. Yeah.
Right. And so they brought him in to be the featured performer. And he also, I think, was, I may be wrong on this, but I always got the sense he was also kind of a part-time instructor as well, with choreography and movement for the guard and things like that. And for us, as Hornline members, we were starting to explore, I think that may be the beginnings of Hornline doing choreography to some degree, not just marching. But I might be wrong on that. Yeah. So anyway, we were trying to do choreography in the at least the beginnings, as compared to today. but it was challenging, and doing certain things and trying to keep time while you're doing fluid motion, and that was sometimes a little bit challenging. And even things like at the end of the show, like when we were doing the scatter and things like that, the scattered company front, it took some time to understand your independent timing versus the ensemble timing. Like, and for me, I had to run behind the field, behind the drum line, and come all the way to the other side almost. And it was, I remember the early parts of doing that, I got lost all the time and had to figure it out and practice it.
Ballet. But let's watch it, and then we can talk about some of the story. So are you guys ready? You guys ready?
I already have goosebumps.
No, me too.
It's such a beautiful beginning.
And you can see right there bits of body movement, lower body movement.
Already, yes.
Already.
Yeah, I remember we were told it was important to be starting off with the choreography because the subtitle for Appalachian Spring is Ballet from Martha, from Martha Graham, the choreographer.
You're sat from the top of
So,
the box.
Allentown Retreat, we heard this, I almost died.
I got goosebumps watching him dance.
What's the name of the solo dancer?
His name is Wesley Johnson. He passed away, I think, 1994 or 1995. That's one instance where mic placement really hurt the balance. I think it was probably Jerome, Mark, but there was one baritone that had a microphone right.
Well, back in those days, they had a mic on the 35 and the 35.
Yeah,
Like you'll hear snare lines, and they'll sound like they're out on the rolls, but they're actually perfectly together.
Yeah.
Right, and the third sopranos were in the same spot at the end of Santa Clara show. The exact same spot.
Exactly. This is kind of
pretty fast tempo here, guys.
Yeah, and it's one of the first better-known motifs. So the pa 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 pa. I mean, that just kind of Copeland.
The shaker melody. That's pretty commonly known.
Yeah. But just that three notes, pop, 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 is just everywhere throughout the piece.
I think the thing that makes the opening production special for me, especially from the aerial viewpoint, is Zingali's transitions from set to set.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then from the percussion standpoint, Hannum, and I'm not sure if Ralph did this with the Vanguard, but I know that Hannum would love to double rolls. That's in the early days of doubling rolls on bass drum. And with the snares.
I think you really hit the nail on the head about Zingali's drill, because I mean, back in the pre-computer days, it was chart, 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 and it was really Zingali's genius to see how it flowed, which is 99% of what you see is the transitions.
Yeah.
Oh, it changed visual design. It really did.
And a huge part of that was Mark Sylvester.
Oh,
George would come up with the ideas, but Mark would make them work.
yeah, exactly. Because sometimes George couldn't always make it happen or clean it, but Mark could clean anything and make it work.
Did Bob Morrison arrange this music for the front ensemble? You guys know?
I can't remember.
I just really like the mallet arrangements a lot.
I think that was Rob James that did the
Yes,
melody.
that's who it was. It was Rob James. Yeah. This is one of my favorite moments of the show to perform right here, this hit, this mellophone pop.
Yeah, this is a great moment.
Beautiful.
Great
This-
musical resolution.
The little
Wow.
feature
Wow.
here is so beautiful. The ending is perfection.
And you have that big hit, people turn backfield, and all of a sudden it comes right back down again. Just the emotional contrast. Because early in the season, this little section dragged on and on and on to the point where Zingali called it the funeral dirge. So it was shortened considerably in the rewrites.
It feels the perfect length right now. I mean, you guys, you got it down.
You know, coming out of music school, this was just always felt so true to the actual composition.
Yeah.
This is the only time we put our horns down the whole show, unless you're wearing that little 10-member ensemble up front. You put your horns down for 40 counts.
I played in the 10-member, so I never had it down.
Mark never put his horn down for 11 and a half minutes.
It's a great set.
One thing I love about Copeland's music is that it is deceptively complex because it sounds it's smooth, it has such a great flow and a feel to it, and the time signatures are shifting all over the place.
Yep.
And you don't get that sense that it's awkward. And of course, the Garfield.
There it is, you guys. Nice.
I love this. They really did a great job on the camera work featuring him at the right time.
Yeah.
And here comes the change. This person, the mellophone soloist, Nicole Roach. A great person. And was this her first year, Stuart, in the Corps?
Yeah, it was her first year in the Corps. There were about 5 girls, I think, that came down from Ventures over the winter.
Right, yeah, from like that Kitchener-Waterloo area.
Yeah.
Okay,
She's a
if you're watching this solo gives me goosebumps on the last note.
Yeah.
If you're watching this, I love you, Nicole.
Same here, Nicole.
Same here, and I haven't even met you. Oh,
I will.
Beautiful job, Nicole.
This is the part, though. This part 3 coming up. This was brutal. And we had a Florida rehearsal one time where we worked on this for like 4 hours, and that's all we did on the first 2 moves. And it's like a full unison, 192 beats a minute, which today isn't that big of a deal, but back then it was pretty fast.
this Accelerando
still pretty
Crescendo is wonderful. I love it.
Here comes that famous Cadets velocity.
I'll never forget one time in the rehearsal, I had a brain fade. I pulled out of the set 5 yards too early. I was backing up straight towards the snares, and they had to stop everything. And I forget who it was. Maybe it was Hannum said, if he does it again, run his ass over.
Right.
Art is so exciting.
Yeah, a lot of great players in this line. Willie Higgins and Lee Bettis.
Yeah.
Michael Jones.
Your mallet players are flying.
You're running. There we go.
I always love that set. That's my favorite set in the show, probably.
Dude.
There's a great picture floating around on the internet of that set from St. Louis. Remember that, Martha? It was hot.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Yeah, we both, of course, experienced that one. Woo.
I don't know.
The baseball mound.
Somebody took a picture of that set, and right when it hit, and everyone's still leaning over halfway, just from sliding in.
No, you never stop, you guys.
we did a
You
headlock.
got for what, a count there? I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love this part of the show because it really showcases the melodic writing of Tom Hannum. It was so cool during the winter. We'd get a new piece. We'd rehearse on it in sectionals. We'd come out and Hannum would say, okay, mellophones, you guys are doubling the bass drums here. And we were. Really cool stuff.
Great texture right here.
And you guys are going. You haven't stopped. It's amazing.
I think your snare line marches backwards more than it goes forward.
Maybe. Or those backward crabs on the angle.
I am tired watching that.
Constantly.
I think the thing about it was that Zingali did that, with like Ralph Hardiman style or Tom Hannum style musically, Zingali had his own visual signature. He did reshapes, and they just don't do that anymore.
Right. I think Pieware killed it.
Well, and reshapes are they're natural. Like they're so natural.
They're not
to the flow.
They're not grid based
either.
either.
To do,
Yeah.
because you may do a move and have like 4 subsets in one move.
I love that the drill was so organic. I used to tell people that, yeah, we have the charts, but those are just checkpoints.
Yeah.
You know, because you'd see a chart, you go, oh, I'm moving 8 steps this count. Well, no, you're actually moving about 20 yards that way, and then you're coming back because of the transitions. It's really a,
Well,
I'm sad to see that it's kind of faded.
in this famous company front, disappearing, reappearing company front with Scatter coming up,
It's
we actually got booed a couple of shows.
oh no,
in
it's
the
the
early
greatest thing
days.
ever.
Yeah, one of my
It slays to me
all-time
to this
Yeah,
day.
and
favorite
Zagali
moments
said,
ever.
don't worry, they'll love it.
This is
This
when
is
I
where
first
get
saw
these
this on tour,
far.
I was just like, holy crap.
Legendary.
What?
Legendary.
It's
And
amazing.
the pause in the middle, it just owns.
Unreal.
Who was
Right here.
doing
Right
it?
here. It is.
It's crazy.
They were encouraging us all season to be, to improv our
Yeah.
body movement.
It's beautiful.
Everybody be creative and new.
Paid
Oh,
off beautifully.
by the way, that's me on the 50.
Oh, cool.
Congratulations, buddy.
I had one brief moment that I was the center of the universe, baby.
I was standing. I'm sorry, I was standing.
Man.
And then there's this.
I think maybe
Yeah, I want to talk about that
The most-
afterwards.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got some questions.
the way you guys let the field
Had the
is
doubles
just
at
so.
Same problem. So
And one thing to look for here, too, I don't know how well this was known at the time.
Yeah.
There were actually characterizations going on here because Wesley was the minister. Wendy Whitmer-Dorr
Really?
was the bride, and then our soloist, Rick, was the groom.
Yeah.
And you can see he ends
And
giving
I'm-
the benediction.
And I'm not sure if you guys knew this or the drum corps community knew it, but all that stuff from the company front into where we are now was done without a drum major.
I love how the pit
Oh.
goes down on the knee.
okay, see how
We
the
never
sun
heard this solo.
comes down the
The
back.
crowd was cheering too loud.
You can hear it in semifinals, but yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, there's no backfield conductor?
No.
There was
That's
not, we were
incredible.
told to watch the feet of the drum line.
That's
there you guys
incredible.
go.
And it was,
Ugh.
never charted.
It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, great staff, of course, led by Mark Sylvester and then Paul Pinachero,
Mark Hart,
Johnny Sanchez, Mark Hart, Eric Sabach.
Joe
Uh,
Rogan,
yeah, it was
Wow.
Joe Roach, of course. And so,
Tom Smith.
you know, and in that horn line as well, through that Zingali influence, is John Vanderkoff, who writes for the Bluecoats, and Jeff Saktic, who wrote for the Cadets for years and also writes for Carolina Crown now. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that came out of that corps, especially that year, with those kind of influences who are still involved in the activity. You know, one of the things I remember too from the musician side of things is the priority of musicality by Michael Klesch and Tom Hannum. Like they really wanted to phrase,
Yeah.
and that was important to them. And just as it was just as important for the visual staff of how do we do a tendu. We tried to do our very best with level of attention to detail.
Well, here's the arc. The arc was the cadets started slow and they won. We started hot and we stayed red hot and we got super cocky and we were expecting to win. It's a
These two
different
lines
story.
converge right at the end of the year. And yeah.
Second place hurt as opposed to it being, hey, we got silver medal. It was like, what?
Yeah.
So I can appreciate the cadets arc. That's
You know, I
awesome.
think that's a very
Yeah,
interesting point.
And I
Go
think
ahead, Mark.
I think also, you know, that point, Ty, you make, we all, you know, if you've been in this activity long enough, you go through that multiple times. And so, like, because we all know there's tons of social media and online groups and people debate 87 Garfield and 87 Santa
Yeah.
Clara. And my take was, shortly after I aged out, my take on the whole thing was, no matter what you believe,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because both corps were phenomenal. They were stellar, and it was great. And that mindset has always stayed with me because it's the art that comes first.
Right.
1993, I was with Star of Indiana,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a great drum corps. It was very avant-garde. Everything was wonderful about it. And then the cadets kind of surged. They had a very GE-friendly show. And so in the end, we were second by a tenth. And I just remember,
Yeah.
this is just me. I'm not speaking for anyone else. I did not, it didn't matter to me at all,
Right.
because my goals as in the marching arts had been achieved with a great show,
Yeah.
and a great membership and things like that. And then of course in the 90s, I was with the cadets and we were second a bunch, so I get that whole thing. But it's for the 87 Santa Clara Vanguard and the 87 cadets to still be discussed so much to this day says a lot about our designers, our instructors, and our members.
So when you were talking about bitterness, yes, back in the day, there was bitterness. We can look back on it now and say we were just competitive and it wasn't against them personally, but we were bitter. And it was that way for many years, and then we all grew up.
I don't want to say bitter. Bitter's not the right word. So intense. We're so intensely focused on what we were doing and appreciate what we accomplished and what our colleagues accomplished. And like 30 years later, we're still talking about it. So it must have been something pretty good.
Yeah. And if there's any 87
Very
Garfield or Vanguard alums who are watching this and they're not a part of that private secret Facebook group and they want in, reach out to me or Stuart.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking as a youngin', I'm the youngest one here, right? I think I'm the youngest one here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are.
Oh, yeah.
The legend of Zingali is akin to the legend of Gail Royer. We've heard about these people.
Everything that George Zingali did in his life was infused with love.
Well said. Well said.
When you see, being a member and being taught by Zingali and then being with him on staff and then with two corps and being involved, it's just the interview you see for like the 27th Lancers at the Olympic Games or whatever that was.
Yeah.
That was part of Zingali, who was, one way you could put it is he was a living cartoon character. Like he really was. He was so animated and very passionate, but just wild and crazy, and had that thick Revere, Massachusetts accent, and he had that side of him that was like outwardly energetic and passionate. But, there was another side of him. He was really in touch with his core as a human being. We had, and I won't dwell on this too long, but about a week and a half before finals, one of our trucks was in an accident.
God.
And where I sat on the bus and being in that one bus, I saw it all, and it really shook me up for a day or two. And we went out and borrowed equipment, and we did the show that night, and we were terrible, and I was kind of upset, and I just remembered I didn't really say anything. I just did my business, but Zingali sent something, and he came over one day. We were in the gym, and he had a talk with me for not long, about 5 minutes, but it really felt like an eternity. And he said all the right things to kind of get me to think about it in a different way and how to refocus my purpose with the Corps.
Nice.
And I will always be thankful to him for that.
Yeah. George had a very, very deep faith. And I think if you see the last drill he wrote, he shared that with the world in 91 Star, which I think is kind of the high water. If you talk about 80s style drum corps, I think 91 Star is kind of the high watermark for that type of thing when you look at the people who are involved. But that drill is just filled with all kinds of symbolism. The final with cross, beginning, ending. It tears me apart every time I watch it because it just reminds me of him, and he was just kind of professing his love for God and his love for the world. And he was doing it with a bunch of kids running around with trumpets,
Wow.
This is just about that 1987 drum corps, the Garfield Cadets. I've never been involved with a group of people that came together of a single mind and a singular purpose with so much concern and care for one another as that group. And it was a very small span of time, really. You look at the summer tour, it was about 10 weeks. But it has impacted my life more than anything that's come before or since. And I won't list the names now. I just want to remember those because several of our corps mates have passed away. And I'm sure same with Santa Clara because we're all getting to that age. But if any of you from 87 are watching this, I love you all. And thank you for giving me a gift that has been with me ever since.
Absolutely. And for me, I just want to say thank you to all of our fellow cadets in '87 and other years who really made the experience of drum corps special to the point where I'm still doing it to this day based on the motivation they gave me. And I've been, I've had a pretty long career and a pretty successful career in many regards. And I owe a lot of people for that besides my fellow members from that year. But I learned so much from people like Tom Hannum and Tom Ungst and
Yeah.
Zagali and Sylvester and Eric Sabach. And it was just, I always hate that I don't want to leave anybody out, but there were just so many great staff members, and later on Jimmer and Donnie and things like that. So it's just that cadet experience really kickstarted the rest of my life in the marching arts, and I thank them all for that.
I can say for all of us that your show is amazing. Your entire organization is amazing. I'm so glad. I'm so honored that the two programs have continued to exist, but also have built a friendship. Even in 1998, I remember we shared snack together with the cadets, and that was one of my favorite snacks of all time. And I'll never forget the Miss Amana crew pulled out all the stops and did the baked potato bar, and I was like, wow, this is a night, because we're having the baked potato bar with all the fixins and the cadets are here, and it was an amazing experience. So I think that's one of the best things about drum corps is not only the fraternity that you get within your corps, but also the bigger fraternity of drum corps in general. We're all family members in this activity. So I can't thank you guys enough for being here and sharing your stories and your time and your generosity. It's really my pleasure. So
Yeah, please go to YouTube and like and share and hit the subscribe button down there. I can't say the word subscribe. Hit the subscribe button down there.
it's amazing to think how when you guys talk about cadets, we are all thinking like, yeah, man, this is like we had the same experience, just a different name, just a different color uniform,
Right.
So it's really, really cool that you guys are here.